one of the questions I have about their offense is one that I think we all should have, but I wanted to put some numbers to it for everyone. One of the questions near the top of the list is what about the center field position? What's the offense going to be like there in 2024? And it's a legitimate concern. It's certainly a very fair question, obvious question.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why Ali Marmol wants to use Tommy Edman in center field. He was the best center fielder they had. Carlson's, I think, above average, but Edman was really terrific. Edman was five outs above average according to StatCast. And that's in relatively limited time out there. So he really excelled when he played in center field defensively. But in the 2023 season, and the guys that played the most out there were Nootbaar, Carlson, and Edman. Now people say, "Oh, what about Tyler O'Neill?" What did that last? Like 7 games or something? He doesn't count. The playing time was Nootbaar, Carlson, and Edman. But if you look at the entire group that played center field for the Cardinals last year, they hit .225. Boo. They had a 306 on base percentage. They slugged .368. And they ranked 22nd among Major League center field groups in OPS, 673. If you want to go with weighted runs created plus, it's not that complicated, but it does sounds when you say, WRC plus. Like I'm talking about Royal Crown Cola or something. There's a good reference.
It is. Thank you for that.
It's really, all you got to know is 100's average. And it's really an advanced way to actually evaluate offense. It's really not that big of a deal, but I use it more and more. So according to that metric, which is a legitimate metric, and all teams use it to judge performance of offensive performance, the Cardinals center fielders as a contingent last year, 15% below the league average offensively. They ranked 21st among 30 center field delegations. Listen, now Nootbaar's offense in center field was fine. Nothing wrong about that at all. When he played center field, he hit 22% above the league average as a center fielder. And that matched really what he did for the most part wherever he played. Left field, right field, DH, whatever. Mm-hmm. He put up good numbers when deployed in center. Edman and Carlson combined for 313 plate appearances when they were used in center field, and they struggled terribly on offense. Edman is a center fielder. 185 average, 250 on base percentage, a 296 slug, a 546 OPS, and his weighted runs created plus was, as a center fielder, 50% below the league average offensively. We said it on the show, we'll say it again. Playing center field ain't easy, and Edman has got that high speed, hard charging, daredevil attitude about fielding, which it's one of the things that makes him really, really good. It also makes him really entertaining. And when he's in center field, we've seen it. He leads him into diving and leaping and crashing with hard landings on the turf and banging into the outfield wall. I do think it's a legitimate concern the demands of center field could wear him out, because when he was playing center field a lot last year, he didn't hit at all. Was that just an aberration, or does that mean something? Well, I guess we're going to find out. Carlson is a center fielder last year. I'll cut to the chase. He was 40% below league average offensively. So you have Edman and you have Carlson, and if they're going to stick with this plan, Edman and Carlson are going to be the two guys playing center. And last year, if you split the difference, last year they were a combined 50% below the league average offensively playing center field.
Oh, boy.
So why am I supposed to, pick up the pom-poms and, wave them and, they're set, Willie Mays. It's just, this is a major concern. Now, some people say, well, wait a minute, you got to evaluate them overall, not based on the position they play. I respectfully disagree, because in Edman's case, I think playing center field is a more demanding job for him. Shortstop's demanding too. But I don't think you're going to get hurt playing shortstop, or at least the probability of getting hurt the way it is in the outfield. And he gets banged up because he goes hard, man.
Absolutely.
So what are you going to do? Victor Scott can come up. Edman can move back to shortstop. I don't know what that means for Mason Wynn. It all depends on Mason Wynn. I laugh every day because I see Cardinals fans, some, some, ready to just like dismiss him already. Oh, he's overrated. You got to be able to hit. You can't hit big league pitching. You know what Cal Ripken hit when the Orioles brought him up? I was there. I was writing about it. You know what he hit like as a late season call up for the Baltimore Orioles? He hit 128. I don't recall any of the bunkies. He's no good. They got to send Cal. They need to trade him and get something for him. He's no good. I didn't remember hearing that. But then again, there wasn't Twitter. I just laugh at all these people that are just convinced that Wynn's going to hit 140 in the big leagues, I think he may be offensively challenged as a full-time rookie, but he tore it up at AAA, and sending him back ain't going to help him get better at the big league level.
Doing well.
They want him for defense. They want him for base running. They want him for a lot of things, and he will hit. It's just a matter of time.
We are totally awesome.
So they once again, the Cardinals, and Will Leach and I talked about this, and we'll get to Derrick Goold here in a minute. The Cardinals just always have these puzzles, and the puzzles never seem to be entirely solved. And I'm not saying that as an old guy. It's like doesn't like platoons and he doesn't like moving players around. I'm all for that, but my point is they never really have the perfect system because they don't have the ideal cast, and so they're always moving people around, and it doesn't really seem to get them all that much. Although they're much better in their platoon split hitting under Ali Mamal than they were with Schilt. He does get better matchups. I give him credit for that. But you also sacrifice some defense. So what are you going to do? But the puzzle remains. Edman, center fielder. Oh, man, you need him shortstop. What about Victor Scott? It's like there's always bodies in, bodies out, bodies moving. You never really have the perfect setup, or not perfect, the really, really ideal setup. Anyway, we have Derrick. Derrick Goold, I didn't mean to make you wait. I didn't know how long you're waiting. I apologize. Derrick Gould's with us here. And I was just talking about the conundrum with the Cardinals, like trying to make all the puzzle pieces fit on offense and defense. It's going to be a challenge again. And I wanted to ask you this. Will Leach and I talked about it on Seeing Red the other day. Just because they parted ways with Tyler O'Neill, they still sort of have a puzzle they're going to have to work through with their outfield personnel. And it also may affect their shortstop position. It's never a simple snap everything in place thing with the Cardinals, is it?
No, but production will make it simple, right? Like Mason Wynn performs, he's your shortstop. Dylan Carlson performs, he challenges Tommy Edman in the center field. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Tommy Edman performs, he's your center fielder, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward what they want to have happen. Now, will that happen? We've seen time and time again production not make the decision for the Cardinals, and so they scramble through the multiverse of matchups, as we've talked about before in the years and as you just detailed, to try to maximize what they can get. It all comes down, look, if these guys perform, then the Cardinals have their answers. If Mason Wynn provides something offensively, they expect him to be reliable enough defensively to be at that position. Dylan Carlson comes back from health and makes a strong impact or makes a formidable push for playing time. Then you got two switch hitters who can move around the field, or one of who can move around the field, another one who can play center field. So, it works out. They just need performance.
They do, and that's going to be the question that can't be answered now. And it would with no disrespect to Tommy Edman, because very, very good defensively in center field, but if they would have to use him at shortstop, then that means, unless they bring somebody in, Carlson's a center fielder. Gosh, I don't have to tell you this, but what a benefit it would be in so many ways if Dylan Carlson resumed hitting with authority again, or just hitting, period. That would make such a huge difference. What do you think, though? What do you think about the possibility or the probability that he will have a bounce-back season? Is there anything there that gives you confidence? And I ask you that as a reporter. Obviously, you're not in the front office, but do you think there is a reason why the front office might be confident he will bounce back? That's a better way to phrase the question.
Yeah, I think health is a bigger thing with him than maybe he or the Cardinals really recognized or let on. He tried to play through pain and limits that were related to range of motion and his foot. And you can kind of connect the dots a little bit, and they obviously have and looked into it, but he struggled from one side of the plate that happened to be where that foot was the plant, where there wasn't a whole lot of power coming from that side, and it was that foot that is supposed to provide the base for power, and it didn't happen. He didn't have much range of motion. He couldn't twist the foot without pain, or really couldn't twist the foot at all because of the bone spurs that were in there, then dealt with a high ankle sprain that added complications, and then ultimately led to the treatment that he received. And talking to the Cardinals, talking to people who know what Dylan's doing, I mean, he's out there working in Phoenix. He moved to Phoenix, in the Phoenix area, and he's working there. I know he had a trip to Driveline planned, and some other kind of work that he was going to do on his swing, some kind of evaluations that he had to get healthy first, and then he would go, kind of chase that instruction, that metrics, that big breakdown, and then big breakthrough on his swing. But all of it was like basic, or the base of it was health, because he just didn't have much power from his feet. And we know how important the feet are to hitters. We've seen it with Albert Pujols, with Ryan Howard, with Alan Craig over and over again. And he just didn't have any of that kind of stability or movement that he could get. So I think there's reason to think like, okay, if that was a huge contributor and a huge limit, and even if subconsciously he altered his swing, there's reason to believe, Bernie, that, health would lead to a better view of what he can actually be as a player. Now, does he produce? That's the question. But at least he's got a better chance.
Yeah, it's really interesting. He's going to be one of the more compelling members of the team, when spring training opens. And of course, once the regular season gets underway, Derrick, I wanted to ask you. Nothing's official, but it looks like Yuki Matsui, the Japanese lefty reliever, who just fastest guy or youngest guy to go over 200 saves in Japan. Cardinals had some interest. You can maybe help us understand, based on your reporting, their level of interest. But it looks like he's going to sign with the Padres. So, number one, did you ever get a good sense? Because it's not easy to get people to tell you things. You do a good job of that, but it's never easy. Did you ever get a sense how serious their interest was in him? And number two, where do they go from here, if anywhere, in terms of their bullpen?
Well, serious enough for him to come to St. Louis. He did come to St. Louis, meet with them face-to-face, meet with members of the team that are here, meet in front office and coaching that are here, and, see St. Louis. So it was serious enough that going into the off season, he was on that short list. Well, I don't know about short list, but he was a prominent name on the list of relievers that they thought could make a difference for them, could contribute, and could be, in the mix for the late inning openings that they saw. He was, one of the guys they wanted to chase, and they got far enough along that he was willing to come and visit. And then, now there's reports, including one out of the San Diego Union Tribune, that the Padres feel that they're close enough on a multi-year deal with him, or feel they're close to finalizing a multi-year deal with him. The Cardinals have run into, and we've seen it kind of play out in real time, this notion that all year, and I remember writing about it back in spring training, and then as the offseason approached, that they really spent a lot of time and effort and money to position themselves to make strong bids on this group of players coming over from Japan. Well, there's a lot of, they found a lot of competition. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, his market has just skyrocketed. You're talking about like just one of the biggest pitching deals ever, and he's a guy who hasn't thrown a pitch in the majors, which I find fascinating. But the competition for all these players has just soared. And does that mean the Cardinals have been caught flat-footed? I don't think that's the case, but they certainly haven't been in a spot where they want to be as aggressive as these other teams, or in a spot where they can offer what these other teams have. If Matsui wants to close, Cardinals aren't going to tell him, well, yeah, you're our closer. They're not going to tell him that. Is another team going to say, well, yeah, you're our closer, and then in spring say, maybe you're not? They might. But the Cardinals, whatever you want to say about them, they at least are upfront about like the roles with these guys, and if you don't want it, then they don't sign. They run into that mostly with backup catcher and starters, but here's a case where if a guy wants to close, Cardinals aren't going to say, yeah, you're our closer, and yeah, you got 200 saves and you're coming off 39 saves a season. That's great, but they have a closer. I don't know if that's the case, that's what it came down to. But there are other options too, still in the market. To your question about the I mean, it's two of the Houston Astros' most experienced relievers are still available in Matan and Neris. You got Go from Korea, who is still available, and he's been of interest to the Cardinals. He was posted. Matsui is different than Go in the sense that he was just a straight free agent, so no posting fee. That's very much of appeal to the Cardinals. And then, of course, the guys from Houston and a few other relievers still out there, that they've at least talked to their agents about, but getting a feel for where the momentum is tricky. Cardinals were hopeful to have something this week. They wanted to have at least one of the two relievers that they're looking to sign, at least make some progress or even make a completion on it this week. But we'll see. We'll see. They still have ongoing conversations with some of these guys. We'll see if once Matsui becomes official or makes the call to the Cardinals, if he hasn't already, meaning saying he's going to go elsewhere, if the Cardinals quickly pivot and reignite some of the conversations that have been kind of lingering or unfinished since Nashville.
Yeah, and it's certainly a priority. So we'll see what happens and what they come up with. Derrick Goold, the great Derrick Goold, with this
that way.
Yep.
Bernie. I mean, to be honest, they see it that way. I mean,
sure.
I'm never. Mo doesn't say a whole lot, and hasn't said much recently. To be candid, not to me. But in talking with him previously, he's volunteered the need for a high leverage reliever. He's stated it, so I don't see why you wouldn't hold it to him.
No, that's right, and yeah, he's made a series of comments indicating that. So I hope he follows through, because I can't sit here and say that the reliever market has imploded in terms of cost, but yeah, I mean the higher end guys probably going to be more expensive than what they were hoping. Maybe that's the way to put it. So we'll see what they come up with.
You know what? They should get it printed on a T-shirt. Free agents are going to cost more than we expect. News film at 11. It's not like the market grows.
Listen, you and I both covered this organization a long time, and this is one of those things. It's just, I wish I could come up with fresher ways to describe it. It's one of the cliched, hackneyed ways to do it would be it's like the film Groundhog Day. It's like year after year after year after year, the same scene, one way or the other, kind of plays out, which is like, well, we got to do this, we got to do that. We're interested in this guy, we're interested in that guy. Boy, this is and then it's just like, then they're like shocked by the sticker price, and it's just they just recoil at. They're just stunned. They're stunned that the cost of pitching could be so high. I don't get it. I just don't understand it. Because it's obvious that the pitching market for the higher end guys, including bullpen, the price isn't going to go down. It's going to go up every single year. So why I don't understand why they don't accept the reality. And they won't adjust their financial model. I mean, it just I think I'm actually pretty reasonable along those lines. I really do. I always say they don't have to spend dumb money to impress me, but some things do require more money than maybe you're comfortable with. But I don't know. You can tell I'm exasperated. You can tell I'm exasperated with it.
Yeah, there used to be a time when the team with the best scouts found the overlooked gems, right? The diamonds in the rough, right? And then there was a time with the teams with the best analytics got the diamonds in the rough, found the statistical anomalies that stood out. And, if you had found an edge there, and the Cardinals did for a long time, they had an edge. They had numbers. They had better reads on the data. They had a better sense of how to use the data. All that stuff has kind of changed here recently. Everybody has the same data. We all have it at our fingertips. There's proprietary data that all the teams have. But for the most part, they're all working from the same, or like 28 of them are working from the same data, right? And so many of the scouts, too many of the scouts have, been downsized or had their jobs changed, that's not the edge that it once was, or it doesn't seem to be. So what is? Dollars are back to being the edge. And I don't know when that's going to cycle out, but this has been true for a while, and or at least a handful of years. Credit the Cardinals for going out and getting innings, and they spent dollars to get those innings. It's a good place to start. But the bargain reliever who's a guarantee, boy, that's just not out there.
Well said, and it's just unusual, and I don't know when it'll change, if it's going to change. I'm going to go off what I normally ask you, and I know you're not Dan Caesar, and with this comprehensive, reporting on like the TV situation.
No, but I did spend 5 hours listening to that court hearing on Friday or whatever.
Well, there you go. Well, you are Dan Caesar then. But no, thank you for that. And the fact that Amazon Prime is interested in maybe partnering with Diamond Sports, I don't know what to make it. I've read a lot about it in the last 24 hours. I think there's a danger, and I'm only speaking for myself, maybe at first jumping to conclusions, thinking that it's like, okay, well, it looks like they're going to solve the problem. Is it that simple? I don't think it is, right?
It's not. Okay, so it's really complex, but not a surprise that Amazon Prime or a streaming service wants to get involved. It's similar to why Major League Baseball wants to get involved, right? There's a chance to get pennies on the dollar, right? You have a chance to have, to bail Diamond Sports out of their trouble, and at a cost is, say, lower than it would be to buy them outright, and then also take on the cost of all these rights fees. So it's a similar situation in the sense that, like, okay, well, here's a depressed asset, and here's a company that wants to buy that depressed asset. What it would mean for MLB is someone else would take on their rights and bring some stability in that regard, and also not have the pinch of them all of a sudden taking it all on, losing their rights because they're running the thing, but then coming out probably better with a steadier stream and a more modern stream, in the long run. What the overlap too would be is that, in reading through these things, and this did not come up in the court case, we can talk, or the court hearing on Friday down in Texas, we can talk about that too. But what is of interest here is the notion of moving things to streaming while then also keeping them on a regional. And how do you do that? Do you create a situation where there is the slow migration of games to entirely streaming? Can you do away with blackouts at the same time, or do you have to wait to do that until everything is migrated to streaming? Those are some of the questions that would come up. The Cardinals being a part owner of their RSN, and then also, like, you got Marquee, which is the Cubs, and Yes, which is the Yankees. How do those factor in? And then, of course, you have out in Seattle where they've taken complete ownership, right, and production, and the cost of that. And it sounds like some folks are not going to have jobs because of that as they downsize. So you have all this happening at once, and it goes back to the fact that, a company that wants content sees a chance to purchase at a lower rate than you ever would have before, and then take it on. Does provide some stability. I don't know what that means for the product, for the consumer. Major League Baseball at least wants to get to a point down the road where it's great for them on a very fertile ground for revenue for them, but they also want to make sure their game is available to as many people as possible. That's a real concern for them because of archaic blackout rules, or because of the attempt to try to grow the game globally Japan, Asia, the other countries in Asia, where they could get some kind of subscription boost for them if they can make all of these games more available.
A follow-up question. Will Leach and I were talking the other day on Seeing Red, and we both arrived at the same conclusion. We were talking about the TV situation, and we said, in effect, we weren't trying to analyze the actual business part of it. We know that it's all been in turmoil. There's chaos. There's some open-ended questions that are making teams nervous. But I think to sum up what we said is, look, no matter where this thing's going to go, maybe everything will be fine. Maybe it'll be a panic city. Who knows? But it's in their best interest to have the best possible team that they can put on the field, because who knows? They may have a stand. It may end up where the Cardinals have to sell their own TV, their own streaming service, and have a standalone service, and they're going to have to and people have to be fired up about taking out a subscription to that. The way things are going, fans are not real happy. There was a drop-off in actual baseball attendance at Busch Stadium last year. There's indicators that are disturbing. If they'd let the product continue to slide, that could hurt them in a big way, depending on what happens the next evolution of their local broadcast rights, if they are the ones that are going to be trying to sell it. You want to sell it at a time where everybody loves you, not when they're kind of fed up with you, right?
Yeah, I mean, they still have the bulk of their 15-year deal with Bally Sports, Diamond Sports. They still have that to go, so they're only at the midpoint of it, which is right about the average, because it's set to – there's escalators in there. So let's say they are due for about $73 million in rights fees for 2024. That's about what it was average over the time, the $1.1 billion deal. So they still have the bulk of their money owed to them. That's something to keep in mind. I'm a little, I don't know, maybe more cynical than, is that possible? That I'm more cynical than the two of you? I think how this plays out, Bernie, is, it's going to play out slower for the Cardinals because they're in a good spot, right? They're not part of the hearing in Texas on Friday. They weren't brought up except for in the time when the Texas Rangers lawyers said that behind the scenes there's discussions on a broad and global deal with all teams and Major League Baseball itself. That, I thought, was a revelation. It came early on in the hearing, and this notion that, okay, look, they're talking and they are outside of court trying to come to an agreement, and that the notion that it was a broad and global deal as opposed to one that is just fixated on the three teams that are in most jeopardy right now, or the five teams that I think were in the hearing, that it was more global. I think that's noteworthy, right?
Yes, of course.
And all teams would benefit from that. But here's the cynical part. Okay, it's going to hurt for a while. However this goes, for some of these teams, and maybe not the Cardinals, but for some of these teams, it's going to hurt. And the Cardinals are at least positioned themselves. You can see with their actions, the short-term contracts, the one-year deals, these kind of things, the fact that they'll grow payroll and feel a little bit of a pinch this year, but aren't pledged to continue growing it beyond this year because they don't know. They see some volatility. So the Cardinals' actions speak to how they want to position themselves for a little bit more flexibility. So say they start losing, say they lose revenue, all teams do, 2025, and that it hurts in 2026. And then they emerge in 2027 with a better, richer, stronger, more comprehensive deal that costs them money to produce, that costs them money on the production end, but they're going to take the whole windfall for, or they can sell off to a streaming service to then take the windfall for. So the money will start coming in. Oh, by the way, and again, this is where the cynicism comes in, you'll hear talk of expansion. And all the money that they lost during this RSN debacle, and all the money that they're like, well, where is it going to come from? Well, you know where it's going to come from? It's going to come from expansion fees. They'll just bake it in, and they'll get that money back. So that's my view of it. I'm not saying that that's what I've been told, but you can see how the dollars line up, right? Where They want to get this RSN figured out. They got the rules figured out. They want to get some stability there. And then, okay, they want to be in position. Hey, Nashville, do you want a team? Hey, Oakland, do you want an expansion team? Charlotte, give us your best. Montreal, what do we got? All right, well, let's talk expansion fees. Well, that's a really good way for current owners to recoup some of the lost money that they've had with high expansion fees.
Makes a lot of sense. No, I don't think you're being cynical. I think you're being logical. No, that's well laid out there by you. Help us understand this. One more question on this, if you have time. Derrick Goold, a great.
Oh, wait. So Bernie, real quick, it won't matter what team they have. That's the last part of that.
Oh, I got you.
Maybe
right.
That's the cynic part.
I see.
It's like you say that they need to have a good team on the field to sell. You know what? Nashville, those expansion fees are going to be the same whether the Cardinals win 91 games or lose 91 games.
I got you. Well, they still got to sell tickets, though, right?
They did.
And other goodies. Help me understand this, and I'm sorry because this is the one. This is one area with this is I'm generally speaking a lunkhead anyway with this kind of stuff, but especially in this
put the pressure on me. I don't know what's coming.
No. Help us understand this part. Because the Cardinals own, what do they have? 50% of their own TV. Okay, but they still have a pretty sizable chunk because they're on the hook because they own so much. If Diamond Sports is to go belly up, is that the thing that scares the Cardinals the most? In other words, to use the expression, they'll be left holding the bag. Like what's the big hit financially? Like the worst case scenario? Is it because they own a big chunk of that contract and or is it something else that would hurt them more from that standpoint in terms of TV?
It's a good question, and it's kind of why the Cardinals are at least in a good position because the hit they would take is just if that's the default on the rights fees, right? Essentially, Diamond Sports would not continue broadcasting, and so the Cardinals would have to take on the entire production side and distribution side. Way back when all this was going on, what are we, 8 years ago or so, like maybe 7 years ago, when all this talk was going on, it's instructive to help us understand where they're at now. The Cardinals and the Blues did talk about, like, okay, do we launch our own channel? Like, is there enough content? Is there enough games? Is there enough interest? Could they, as a collaborative, launch their own channel and follow the Cubs model or the Yes model or the Dodgers model? One of the concerns at the time, especially for the Cardinals, because they saw the Dodgers and the Cubs go through this, was distribution, right? Not just taking on the production costs and setting up the facility and the studios and all that stuff. It was the distribution. How do you get onto the subscriptions? How do you get your channel to the viewers? Because you might recall the Dodgers there for a while were not available in Los Angeles to what wasn't a majority of the households there because they had a hard time getting their channel to be distributed by cable networks. Same thing with a little bit more.
I think we lost
Channel
them there.
5.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Channel 5 on here. No. If you're not, I don't know, Bernie, are you getting Channel 5 with your cable deal now?
Well, I have DirecTV, but no, they're not getting it, which is why I won't be a DirecTV customer for too much longer. So anyway, go ahead.
Right. Then so you can understand that, like, that's a serious thing. Distribution is a huge thing for teams.
Sure.
It was a big thing for Cubs. It was a big thing for the Dodgers. Well, the Cardinals were like, well, we already have a group that's already figured out the distribution, Fox Sports Midwest at the time. They were everywhere. They were all set. And so why not become part owner of a thing that already has that figured out as opposed to launching from scratch? That's instructive now because if they take over, the distribution is going to be a big part of that. How do you figure that out?
Right.
So it's not just launching an app. It's how do you get back on these cable networks where people it's not what it used to be, but it's still there.
That's the real puzzle, more so than the outfield, to say the least. Derrick, I'm out of time. We'll talk to you as soon as we can. Look forward to it. Happy holidays to you and Erica and Ian and your parents and her family and everyone else. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and it's very meaningful to have you part of the Burning Show, and you know that, but I just wanted to make sure you knew it. So thanks for all you do for Cardinals baseball fans with your excellent coverage, and Post-Dispatch with the excellent coverage, and thanks specifically for being part of our little radio show. Appreciate it very much.
You bet, Bernie. Thank you for a great year of conversation.
Always fascinating. Yeah, we will. Thank you so much. That's our friend Derrick Goold. And listen, I don't know. Some of you maybe are like me, and I'm going to tell you real quick before we take a break. Like me, I mean, I've been kind of this attitude of like I don't have the time to like find out. Maybe I have the time. I'm not willing to invest the time. That's more accurate, to find out every little thing about the TV stuff. Because I assume, like, look, something's going to be decided, and just let me know when it happens. It's like it's headache-inducing stuff. It really is. But that's why Derrick Gould's so valuable, because he actually listened to the 5-hour hearing the other day, he knows this issue inside and out. So I apologize in a way to you if you hope to get great insight from me in terms of this very tangled web that is their TV issue. But it's just I don't know how to explain it. It's important, but I'm just not all that interested in the play-by-play, except when there's a new development like there is with this Amazon Prime possibility and what that could mean. But that's why Derrick is so valuable, because he is on top of this stuff, and he can enlighten and educate blokes like me who don't want to spend the time getting all tangled up in it. So that's why, I respect Derrick Goold for a million reasons, but that's another one.